Tonight on The Conversation.
Till death do us part has a whole different meaning now. You know, is the same man that you're with during the family parenting years, the same one that you want to spend in the middle of the life and then the one at the end? You know, not everyone can do that.
I didn't really need to find the right man because I had him.
You're this strong, independent woman, and you meet the love of your life, and he's attracted to you because you're this strong, independent woman, but somehow lost in the years of that relationship, you know, you don't even know what phone service you use anymore.
The same way an old man who's having like a midlife crisis can buy a Porsche, you know, and date like a 17-year-old, I can buy myself a pair of titties and be the sexiest soccer mom like you've ever seen.
The Conversation is a totally alternative interview series with women who have a story or experience to share. We talk about everything that women talk about: relationships, sex, kids, career, money problems, body image. We're basically talking about the universal language of women.
We're dealing with a lot of problems now that never used to exist because people simply died, you know, including long marriages.
Oh God, what's that about?
Really?
I
We're actually staying married longer now than we used to, but we didn't have to deal with divorcing because we died.
Yeah, and how about, you know, like I got married at 16 to my first husband, and I remember saying, look, I think I can give you 10 years. Like, that's the max I couldn't comprehend, and rightly so at 16, being with one guy for more than 10 years. And I just hit 10 years with my second marriage, and I'm thinking, can I do another 10 years on this?
Well, it poses some pretty interesting questions about till death do us part has a whole different meaning now. You know, is the same man that you're with during the family parenting years, the same one that you want to spend in the middle of the life and then the one at the end? You know, not everyone can do that. I just finished writing a book about aging, and I interviewed a lot of people who've been married 60 years.
And what did they say? Was there like a common thread that people said?
Yeah.
What was it?
There were a lot of common threads. Humor.
Please share some.
Humor.
Humor. Yeah.
Humor. Sexual compatibility. Sensuality is like the glue that can hold them together through the rough times. Common interests, obviously. And the ability to know what you want and be able to let go of the things you don't want. Do you know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. And that's a fine balance, isn't it? Where do you compromise what it is that you want? You know, you state what your needs are and you work on those and you see how many of those your partner can meet. And then where do you draw the line and say, okay, these needs are not getting met, but I'm gonna let it go? Because that's key, at least for me.
The key is knowing who you are. Now, for some of us, like I'm the opposite of you. I am a major late starter, which is really good news since we live so long. It's good to be a late starter.
I know, I'm a little screwed right now. I'm a bit confused.
You're knowing yourself, which of course gets easier as you get older.
Why does it get easier?
Well, because you just have more mileage under your belt, and so you know, okay.
You've unturned a lot of stones.
I've been married 3 times, and what I always needed was I needed an alpha male in whatever field he was in. My first one was a film director who'd been married to Bardot and Deneuve before me. The second was a political activist, and Ted Turner was Ted Turner. I needed the man to validate me. He defined me, and that's not true anymore. So now, what did I never have with those 3 men? Intimacy.
Yeah.
You know, and by intimacy, I mean being able to
really show who they are, including their vulnerability.
Their whole selves, and being able to accept your whole self. So that you wouldn't have to leave what you thought was the flawed part.
Which is the really interesting part.
Exactly, it could be the most interesting part of you. You'd leave it on the porch and only bring into the bedroom what you thought was perfect. And so as I approached what I consider my 3rd act, the first 30 years, second 30 years, second act, last 30 years starts at 63rd, you know, the 3rd act. And I knew, because I had really studied my first 2 acts, that if I'm going to die and not full of regrets, which is what I'm scared of more than death, I need in my 3rd act to experience intimacy with a man. I have no problem with women friends, with girlfriends. And so, you know, like right now I'm with a man who does not define me. I don't feel like if I'm not with him, I'm going to fall down a hole.
Oh, what a nice feeling. What does that feel like?
It feels like being whole.
Yeah.
It feels like I know who I am. I'm standing on my own 2 feet. I don't need a man to define me. He couldn't give me any of that. I would never have been with him earlier.
But Jane,
he can give me the intimacy, and so I don't worry about the rest of it. I am now way more like who I was at 8.
Yes.
Pre-puberty.
You're reclaiming the parts of yourself that you gave up.
That's right, man.
Oh,
you know, a young girl that says, oh yeah, who says? Instead of, whatever you want. You go from a place of mastery of yourself, and then at puberty, you enter a phase of pleasing.
You abandon yourself to please other people.
To please. And then if you work at it, because I don't think it happens by accident. I think you have to be intentional in the way you do your life. You can come full circle. T.S. Eliot wrote about it, and you come back to where you started and know it for the first time. And that's...
With the perspective of a woman who now has the outlook that you have.
At puberty, you know, the majority of girls, the voices go underground. They don't disappear, they go underground. It's why girls are the agents of change, because you don't have to scratch too deep to say, hey, remember how you used to be?
So how did you get to that place? Because what you're talking about has been my Achilles heel since I'm a child. You know, being defined by the man and not feeling complete unless I was with the man and the man gave me an identity. And the worst abandonment of self for me has come around my love relationships. How did you get to the place of not being defined by that wound?
I wanted my last marriage to work so much with Ted that I went into therapy. First, it was both of us together in therapy. And then I kept going on my own, and he never did, of course. And I healed. That plus the fact that I began, as I approached 60, I went and spent a year researching myself. But knowing yourself, you know, going back over your life and doing what's called a life review and trying to figure out who were you. By the time I finished that research and turned 60, I realized there is a there. I'm not just whatever the man wants me to be. There's a theme of courage, of honesty, of some good things that ran through. But what happened was that I suddenly started to feel confident and strong.
Oh, that is so freeing.
But what that meant was that the marriage had to change.
Right, that dynamic was not going to serve you anymore.
Right, we had to renegotiate.
Yeah.
Which meant I had to ask him to make some changes in it. I've been into countries under bombs. I've been in some pretty wild places, and I wasn't brave enough. Took me 2 more years to be brave enough to say, Ted, can you help me here? Can we make some adjustments here? Because I feel like I'm going numb, and he couldn't do it. And I had to make a choice.
You get to make a choice. Yeah. Do I choose him or me?
That's
and
right.
In that moment,
it was
you
like
chose you.
I could stay married and safe, and I'd never have to work again, and he's got all these beautiful properties and everything, and he's cute and funny, and I adore him. And I would die married. I wouldn't die whole.
I never understand why mothers judge other mothers. Like, what do you mean you didn't breastfeed? What do you mean you did this? What do you mean? It's like, can't we all just be on each other's side? It's so hard anyway. Can't we all help each other get through it?
My fondest memory of my father as a little girl is before I would go to bed at night, I would give him 7 kisses and 7 hugs.
When he was around, like, I really enjoyed our time together. We would always spend time in the garage together and listen to, like, salsa music, and it was fun.
My dad used to take me and put me on his lap, and he will kind of rock me to sleep.
Yeah, he really listens to us, and that's what I really I will remember him for, I think.
Listening to you.
Yeah.
I was always like on his shoulders. I mean, I have such vivid memories of his hand being too big for me to hold, so me just holding his pinky. And he always was having me massage his shoulders from the time I was like 3. We were inseparable. It was one of those like amazing relationships, you know? He was the guy. He was like, I'm always here for you. I am never going down. Like, you know, and then he went down. I was alone with him in Italy. I had had my 30th birthday party there at a friend's house with some friends, and then he and I were taking a road trip together. He didn't want to tell me how sick he was, and by the second night at dinner, his eyes started rolling back in his head, and I was like, this isn't okay, like, we have to get you to the doctor. But then it just went very downhill from there, and I just have these images that stay with me, like the ambulance driver handing him a rubber glove, and that's what he was the whole way to the hospital, filling up the glove with blood. I mean, it was very...
upsetting.
Yes, it was very traumatic.
Yeah.
And then he just died that first night.
You know, I was thinking about the things in life that are inevitable. And there's so much that is uncertain. And one of the things that's inevitable is that we're gonna die. And our parents are gonna die. And that's for sure.
Yep.
Everything else is like up for debate, you know? And how in our Western culture, we have no preparation for our parents passing.
Yeah.
And for me, I would imagine that it's somewhat of a rite of passage where you go from being a little girl to having to grow up when a parent passes, especially your primary attachment parent.
I think in that case, I was so in the throes of despair when he died for so long. And it took me a really long time to get my head above water because he was the person that I went to for everything. And it was sort of for me like how Jewish boys, they don't cut their hair until they're 3 because there's strength in the hair, there's power in the hair, there's protection in the hair. And when the boy turns 3, they cut the boy's hair. It's his first step in becoming a man.
Yeah.
He's got to find his strength.
Yeah.
And that's what my dad's death has been for me. It's like, I realized that, wait a minute, nobody is ever gonna be able to take away my problems, and it has to be me. I mean, I have to love myself more than anybody else. I have to take care of myself, and I have to find the answer. As sad as and tragic as his death is, and how I would do anything to have him back, it's almost like a gift that he gave me, because I would not be on the path to being the woman that I am if he were alive.
I read this amazing book by Joan Didion called A Year of Magical Thinking.
Oh yes, I've read that book.
And she talks about she wanted an autopsy done immediately when her husband passed.
Yeah.
Because she wanted them to tell her that it wasn't true.
Yeah.
She wanted them to find that actually his heart was working fine and that he was going to come back to life. And that really impacted me.
Me too. In fact, I've had so many, up until I read that book and since, that was my main wish, that it wouldn't have been true. You know, and it's sad, but it's not the way his life was meant to go. It wasn't the way my life was meant to go. So I think there's a surrender in it at a certain point. It's like, and that, you know, the year of magical thinking makes sense, but after the year, it's like, okay, so let's figure out what the upside of this is.
Right. So after your dad passed, did you feel an urgency to create your own family and to partner?
You know, I haven't thought about it. I mean, I was like pregnant and married within a year of him dying.
I'm just saying.
But you know, I think also there's a part of me that felt when my dad was alive, I didn't really need to find the right man because I had him.
That's just as well, because you had a string that would not. I mean, yeah. And that's a very valid point. You know, like that need was being met. You had a primary male role model. And
I was like, that guy's the love of my life. So, you know.
You have a really, wonderful perspective about a traumatic experience, you know? Like, I see that you have, you know, distress and you have sadness around losing your dad, but you also, it seems to me, are able to feel that at the same time as having optimism and hope and looking at what the upside is.
I think you have to, otherwise the loss doesn't amount to anything, and I refuse to have that be the case. You know, I refuse to have it just be a loss. It's like, what's the legacy in that?
So after your dad passed, you suffered with postpartum depression. What was the gift in the postpartum depression for you?
It was, I think there was some part of me that was like, okay, you have a lot of stuff that you haven't dealt with. And when I had Moses, there was like a real, you know, thing there. And I think in a way it was hard, but it was great because that postnatal depression made me, first of all, it opened me up to spirituality. I don't think that I would have been curious and studying and reading. That has all helped me tremendously and opened my mind and eyes beyond what I could have imagined. And it's only through time and through study that you realize
It'll be okay.
Yeah.
I too suffered with pretty severe postpartum depression.
Did you?
Yeah.
You never told me that.
I was too depressed. I was so depressed. I couldn't even talk about it. I was like, I just couldn't function.
Yeah.
You know? I couldn't function, and I couldn't connect to my babies, and it was devastating.
Yeah.
You know?
I do.
And it's something that people don't really talk about.
Which is a mistake because, you know, we think that it makes us bad mothers or we didn't do it right, and it's like, but we're all in this together, and I never understand why mothers judge other mothers. Like, what do you mean you didn't breastfeed? What do you mean you did this? What do you mean? It's like, can't we all just be on each other's side? It's so hard anyway. Can't we all help each other get through it? And there's this shame attached to it because if you say, I had a baby and I couldn't connect to the baby, it's like,
What's wrong with you?
What's wrong with you, you know? And I think we feel such shame that...
I did.
I did too. I just didn't know what was wrong with me. I couldn't figure it out. I couldn't figure it out. It never occurred to me. My husband actually said, something's wrong. I think you have postnatal depression. I was mortified. No, I don't. And then I started researching what it was and the symptoms, and I was like, oh, yes, I do.
I wish more people were honest about it, because then certainly someone like me would have had places to look to and women to look to.
Yeah.
It would have been more in my frame of reference.
Yeah.
As opposed to something that was kind of hidden and shameful.
That's why I talk about it, because even the awareness of it started to diminish it, because I didn't feel like I'm dying or I'm crazy, period. I was like, oh, this is a thing, this is a real thing. And these are the symptoms, and I have them all, and...
What were those symptoms for you?
It was just kind of an inability to cope, and I couldn't connect with my son the way that I had with my daughter, and I couldn't understand why. I couldn't connect to anyone. It was like I felt like a zombie. I felt very, very detached.
I think I still have a bit of it. No, I'm serious.
No, my theory is you never totally get rid of it.
Like, I definitely had it, and I'm way, way, way better, but as you're like listing those things, I'm like, I still have some mild symptoms.
I think that I think that once you get over the acute phase of it, I think it does change you. I feel changed by it, 100%.
Yeah. I actually, again, in the last few days was thinking, am I ever gonna be normal again? Like, what do I think normal is? Like, before I had twins?
No, you won't.
No. My ass is never gonna be the same. My brain is never gonna be the same. My tits are never just gonna miraculously go back where they were. I'm still gonna have one going that way and one going this way. It's just the way it is. Oh, good Lord.
Somebody sent a picture that was is in a textbook of the two different meanings of the word offensive, and it's one picture of a football player and one picture of me.
Do you believe that long-term marriage is possible?
Well, my parents went through a very horrible divorce, and it's something that I don't ever want to go through, which is why I look for something that's forever.
If you're unhappy in a marriage, you should get divorced.
I think that divorce is something right now in America that kind of speaks to how we think about marriage.
Look at all these women, you know, the First Wives Club, all these women that it is terrifying. They go, oh, my husband could leave me for a younger woman. Well, be ready for that.
I really feel strongly about the importance of women earning their own income so that they have freedom not only, you know, in their job choices, but also within their relationships.
Completely.
Right?
And it's really sad to me. So many women, they let go of who they are for a relationship. I mean, I think it often happens, and I'm not innocent of this, that you're this strong, independent woman and you meet the love of your life and he's attracted to you because you're this strong, independent woman, but somehow lost in the years of that relationship, you know, you don't even know what phone service you use anymore.
Yeah.
You just become this atrophied shell, and a marriage, you know, a relationship can fall apart, and you're responsible for that. You're responsible for your own happiness, whether you're in a marriage or not. And unless you take responsibility for that every day, I think that you can get lost. Also, you see so many women that are fighting to take half of everything, you know, and you raise the kids, and should be half yours. But a lot of times I just feel like, wouldn't you rather be able to just walk away and not take a penny, you know? I mean, kids change all that, of course.
If you were married to someone and you separated, would you give him half of yours?
I guess if he had no money or something, but I just feel like...
My husband asked me that question. He's like, oh, would you give me half everything you earn?
Well, that does happen, right?
It's happening more and more. The more women that are in the workforce that are the primary breadwinners in the family, when the dudes are splitting or whatever, like they're cleaning half out from the woman, who, by the way, is the primary caretaker of the kids, but is still giving up half her stuff.
Right.
You know, I was looking some stuff up on you last night, and my husband's really into comedy, and you know, I'm not. Like, I have a really dry English sense of humor, and not a lot makes me laugh. Like, you really were engaging, and what was interesting is that I was engaged by you, and so was my husband. And when I think about what's interesting about you is that men and women respond to you. I loved hearing you talk about vaginas and tits and just body parts, you know, the words that people are afraid to even say.
Somebody sent a picture that was in a textbook of the two different meanings of the word offensive, and it's one picture of a football player and one picture of me.
What?
And I just go, wow, I'm so common knowledge offensive. I'll tell you what's offensive. These shows that are not even on pay television, you know, they're on ABC during prime time. You know, 25 women in JCPenney prom dresses, fully grown,
competing for one dude.
He took us to a castle. You know, no, he didn't. Producers procured a castle, and there's 25 of you. That's how special you aren't.
And by the way, creating competition like that between women, which is just the worst.
Well, I think that's huge right now. I mean, I always want to, like, shake young girls, because I see things like, I mean, I watch things like The Bachelor and The Real Housewives, but I feel I can handle it. But I think, wow, some, like, young girl watching this, there should be a warning that says this is not acceptable behavior. The biggest thing that a girl can, and a woman, you know, even, should realize is that there is not just one slot for a woman in any given thing. I think that's something that society, men and women both, have enforced. It's in the ether that you have this feeling that one woman's success can only come at another woman's failure. And not only is that untrue, but I almost like to think of it as like the man keeping us down, if in the most broad way, although we are the man, I believe. It's like if I promise you that only good will come from illuminating the whatever
greater
is,
good
yeah,
for all of us.
the good of other women, lifting up women, bringing up women, helping them. There's, you know, I got asked to do a roast, you know, right? And I go, oh, I'm not gonna be in town. And they said, well, we can guarantee you'll be the only woman on the dais. And it just broke my heart that that was a selling point. And there is this mentality that, oh, I'm the only woman who ever did
The
blah, blah,
princess,
blah,
the
you know?
princess, the chosen one.
But it's not, it shouldn't be looked at as a positive thing. There is something inside us, and I think what it is what's keeping us down and what's keeping us from ruling the world, because the worst thing that can happen for people who don't want women to be strong is that we help each other and become a force.
The same way an old man who's having like a midlife crisis can buy a Porsche, you know, and date like a 17-year-old, I can buy myself a pair of titties and be the sexiest soccer mom.
What is your favorite body part?
Favorite body part? I'd say my legs. Like my legs.
It's my eyes. I think my eyes are like my favorite part.
Yeah, I love being curvy. I love embracing my curves.
I love when you can showcase it. It doesn't matter how flat or how big or saggy or they're crooked or whatever. Just be proud of them. Like, just show them. Go up and down the stairs without a bra and just let them hang. I think it's so sexy and empowering.
But that's also because you haven't got big boobies.
Even without having them, I will be the one to walk with an extra kind of swag just so they can at least jiggle like a little.
But let me tell you, after twins, I got one that's this way and one that's that way. Mine are like this.
Then buy yourself a pair of titties.
I know, I'm really
I heard
thinking
somebody
about
tell
it.
me this once, and it just, I was like, you know what, you're absolutely right. Thank you for that. And it just hit me like, why not?
Yeah, if it makes you happy and it's for the right reason.
Buy yourself a pair of titties. That's it.
Would you?
I would. I would. The same way an old man who's having like a midlife crisis can buy a Porsche, you know, and date like a 17-year-old, I can buy myself a pair and be the sexiest soccer mom like you've ever seen. Why not?
I can't wait to see that.
And the day that you don't see it, please hold me to it. It's like, you know what, girl, like you
Go
said
get
that you were
yourself
gonna
some
do.
titties. But I think that's a healthy, you know, that's a healthy response, really. It's like whatever works for you.
As
is
long
the
as you're
truth.
doing it for just reasons that are balanced for you. I mean, it's not even about judging what's right or wrong. You know, who are we? There's nobody on this earth that can tell you that what you're feeling is wrong, you know? They can tell you that what you're feeling is different to what they're feeling. That said, I'm okay with people trying to do whatever it is that they need to do to feel better. What doesn't feel okay to me, that feels a little out of balance, is when you want to turn yourself into something else, when you want to be another person.
Now, you were a ballerina.
Yes.
And obviously ballerinas need to keep their body in a certain kind of shape. Did that cause any conflict for you around your body?
No. I wasn't affected by it. Like I wasn't. It wasn't. But I was always on this. I was always a skinny,
Slimmer.
slimmer. And once I started dancing, I don't think about things like that. I would dance like sometimes 5-6 hours a day.
Wow.
And I would eat. I mean, but I was living in the Caribbean. There's no such thing in a Latin household as like having a healthy diet. To your grandmother, a healthy diet is like, okay, I won't give you plantains, but you'll eat the potatoes, the yuca, the rice,
Right.
the cabbage salad I made for you, the chicken, and just have a little bit of the pork bit. That's it. You know, and so you eat, but
Which is good.
What to me, body image, when it became sort of like something that I was aware of, was when I moved back to the States. And, you know, when you get into your late 20s and you go into like your 30s, I always heard about it, but I never really thought, You don't think about it until it's actually happening
it's
to
happening.
you.
You're like, oh, that's happening.
You're like, what is this? What you weren't there before, you know? Like,
or you were there, not there. That's what I'm doing. I'm like, what? I'm like, the space between my waist and my boobs is getting smaller. I'm like, whoa, how'd that happen?
Or I was wondering when you're like, you jump and your ass like touches like your mid-thigh. Yeah. Like that cheek touches like your mid-thigh. You're like, how did it do that?
Yeah, because
it becomes so elastic, you know?
It really does.
It freaks me out.
It's crazy.
All of a sudden, you have to work out. So for a hot minute, I was sort of beating myself down too much about what was body image. You have to shake it off. You really have to accept yourself by what you are. That said, I'm not immune to the fact that everybody has weight, discomforts. You're either too skinny or you're too this or you're too fat or God, I just want to lose this pound, I just want to tone this. I still have it. I just refuse to let that distort the vision that I have of myself.
Where did this sense of self come from?
My mom has always been a very sort of like a moral compass, like a little lighthouse in my life. With that, she just, and she has her own insecurities, you know. She's a creature. She's a normal person, but she didn't want us to grow up having all these impediments that she grew up having. By growing up in a very Latin household. And I used to have mature conversations with my dad because they exposed us to so many things throughout their relationship that we saw as children. We saw them fighting. There were violent moments there, here and there. We also saw so much passion in their relationship. So once you open that door, then you need to allow your child to ask whatever questions they need to ask.
To know you.
But after he passed away, my mom was so afraid by us not having that male presence, she was afraid of us growing up to be really weak women and dependent and very fragile and vulnerable. And what I guess she compensated by becoming this male figure, just as right along being the female figure, parental figures in our lives. She created these tough little women, and we're just go-getters. And when we were born, we got to see my mom still going through, difficult times with my dad, because my dad was an amazing father, but he wasn't really a good husband to her. And he was a very strict, old-fashioned Latin man. But when it came to us, like in his eyes and the way that he would address us, it's like he wanted us to conquer the world, you know? He wanted everything that he would have wished had he had sons for his daughters.
Do you want to have kids?
Yeah.
You do?
I do. 2 or 3, or 4 or 5, I don't care. They're so delicious. And I love the anxiety. I love the pressure of like a loud room full of yapping kids.
Really?
But I'm a kid myself, so I get along very well with animals and children. I dig them, I get them. They make perfect sense to me. A child makes perfect sense to me. A child speaks more sense than an adult, a grown person, half of the time.
Do you feel like there's things that you need to do in your life first before you start having kids?
No, I never felt that. I waited when I'm Latin. We start young, honey. At 22, you're like, I'm getting an itch to hold something. I just want to have a little critter.
Yeah.
No, I was dating my partner, and you want to be respectful. You want to be mindful. He wasn't ready, and for years he wasn't ready. And then when he got ready, I didn't have time. So I never held anything off because I was waiting for something to kick in.
Right.
I don't think that far about tomorrow. I've always been like that. So I felt the urge to want to have a baby, and I wanted to, and then I remember that respecting his decision and making the decision to wait with him was one of the most mature things.
Oh, yeah.
I remember
God.
I'm like, that was very mature of me, because had it been like the traditional person that I really am, like, well, if I'm gonna find somebody that can give me a baby.
Totally.
I chose to wait. I wanted to, and I'm glad I did. I'm glad that I respected him.
So I totally know what you mean, and I really admire and respect you making that decision.
Part of being equal is being really equal in every sense of the word. It's not just equal that you're going to treat me equal for me. It's equal for them. You know, they're extraordinary creatures, and sometimes we deprive them of their own battles. They're entitled to have their daddy issues. They were exposed to a certain life when they were growing up. They have their own stories. They have their own nightmares. Women, we have the power of the word, and we can make or break a man with just a sentence. And to abuse that power makes you just as crippled as the men that abuse women.
Absolutely.
It's hard, but I feel like the first step is to acknowledge that that happens. And the second step is to wake up and try to be a better person every day.
What is your favorite sex position?
Ooh. You gotta go up, you gotta go down, you gotta arch. What?
What do you lie about?
That I'm confident, but really deep down inside, I have really low self-esteem.
I think I lie to myself that I don't care. Guys I have a crush on, because I kind of like weird ones.
What do you lie about?
Being stuck in traffic and you're just heinously late.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait to see it, but it's just not my cup of tea.
I can't think of anything. I don't.
Things that I buy and I hide.
I don't have the energy for dishonesty anymore.
Lie about my weight.
How happy I am.
I don't lie about my age.
And then also I realized, like, oh, I don't have to explain anything. I'll just be like, oh, I can't. Period.
Do you have any vices?
Wine, occasional cigarette.
Smoking.
I have like 1 cigarette a day. I'm sorry, Mom and Dad.
In-N-Out burger.
Okay, that's actually mine too.
I don't have any.
I'm addicted to anxiety.
I really like picking at my skin. I love the feeling of like picking skin off of people. It's disgusting.
It's a question that I would totally prefer not to answer with my...
What is your favorite sex position?
What? I do enjoy a good sound missionarying.
Missionary.
I like missionary.
On top.
I like being on my knees too. You know.
While I am quite flexible and I can kneel, it's not quite as comfortable for me as it used to be before I had a fake knee.
Most of the time I actually just like missionary position because I don't really have to like do too much.
I love being on top.
I love that you have 3.
I have more, honey. I have more.
I like to be
Manhandled.
Either lying down or sitting up on a couch.
I love doggy style when we're standing up.
Standing up's better, but laying down, it just hurts.
What about sideways?
That hurts too.
With him coming onto me.
No pun intended.
No pun intended. Or pun intended.
Someone just told me about the corkscrew.
You gotta go up, you gotta go down, you gotta arch, you gotta...
Right.
Sometimes I'll put on like tons of black eyeliner and then like I feel like this kind of prowess.
That sounds really fun.
Yeah.
You gotta bend this leg, you gotta
You're a
try
belly dancer.
I'm down with all of them.
Put the leg like over him.
I like a variety.
I mean, just as long as I'm having it, probably anything.
This is an interesting one. What would you tell your 14-year-old self?
It's okay to say no. If something doesn't feel right, you can say no.
Honestly, I think I would want the 14-year-old version of me to give the current me advice.
All these things you believe are your deepest, darkest secrets are going to be the things that give you your greatest happinesses. And you're gonna be fine. Keep your overhead low.
It's gonna get better. At 14, it just felt stuck, you know? So I would have told my 14 self, like, it's gonna get better, because it did. It keeps getting better.
I would say if you want to be a conductor and a composer, go for it, because I always thought you had to be Beethoven or Bach or Henry Mancini, and I look at all the opportunities there are today, so no limitations on your dreams.
Follow the signs. like follow the signs of the universe and trust in them.
I want to be equal to a man because I believe that I was born with a chip that makes me feel that a woman can preach, a woman can work, a woman can fight, a woman can build, can rule, can conquer, can destroy just as much as a man can. We just need to be not given the opportunity.
Create the opportunities.
We just have to take our place. It's always been there.
It occurred to me last night for some reason, like, all the great parts are for men. Well, that's because most of the storytellers are men right now. So tell stories then. Tell great stories, write great stories, and it will change. You have to be great.
I just feel like I need to expand, and if there's something that I'm passionate about, I want to follow it, and it's my one life.
You know, I love that you follow, you know, your own truth.
But we all should be doing that, even if we think, oh, no one is going to accept this aspect of me, or I'm going to embarrass myself. I mean, what is the point in holding yourself back, or holding yourself back for someone else, or to make other people comfortable? It's like, why?
I'm actually, at 73, a whole person. I never thought I'd get there, and it's taken a hell of a lot of work. And the real secret all has to do with your attitude, how you feel, your spirit.
It's an inside job.
It's an inside job. It really is. And I am really happy.
Hey, you. Hi.
Hi, Lizzie. That's Lizzie who just found her way.
Oh my God, you're sweating like a pig.
Well, she is.
Was she working out? Was she at the gym?
She is really a pig.
Mommy, were you at the gym? Oh, Jesus. Does she have gas problems too?
Really bad.
Oh, I totally got it. I got a whiff of it. Oh my God. Let me go wash my hands. Hold on.
Somebody tweeted something to me, like a random person that was like, "You're a dirty Jew whore."
Nice.
And I retweeted it, and I was like, why does this turn me on?
Oh yeah, see, that's much better.
Let's see.
And my head doesn't look like such a pinhead, which it is.
I spilled water. It's okay. I'm gonna get it cleaned up. It's totally fine.
Is it?
Yes. We have dog pee and fucking cat pee and kids and all of that stuff.